Hayley Tanner said in a recent interview that she likes the tone of her life to be honest and light and dark and serious all at once. Her outlook comes shining through in her debut novel, Vaclav Lena, released only last Tuesday, but already rising fast on the sales charts. Her book has already been named an American Booksellers Association Indie Next List Great Read for June. And once you read it, you'll know, like I do, that more accolades will certainly be coming her way. Vaclav is the son of Russian immigrants, dreaming of performing as a magician like his idol Harry Houdini. His best friend Lena will be his lovely assistant. They hurry to finish their homework every day so they can practice for their debut at Coney Island. Fate steps in with a different idea, and as they grow, Vaclav and Lena are forced to reconcile their pasts and navigate their futures. Their experiences aren't easy, but Hayley gives them honest and often charming voices. As Elizabeth Strout, author of Olage Kittredge, says, Hayley Tanner has created a world peopled with characters of great poignancy, and they will linger in the mind and in the heart long after the book is put down. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Hayley Tanner. Thank you.
Hello. I'm told I have to be very close to the microphone. Can you hear me? Yeah? Okay, great. Fantastic. That was lovely. We just drove, my mother and I. She's the one taking pictures of me in the front row. That's how you know the mom. My mom and I just drove down from New York yesterday, and this is the most sun we have seen in 2 weeks. It has been raining non-stop in New York, so I'm thrilled to be here, book or no book. It's amazing. This is my first novel, my very first book. And I'd like to talk for just a second about what that means and what it meant to me and what writing a first novel was all about. I remember, and I'm sure everyone does as well, adults asking me what I wanted to be when I grew up, when I was much younger. And when I was very, very young, and I'm still short, so I'm going to do this. When I was very, very young, 4 or 5, I wanted to be an astronaut. I wanted to see outer space, and I wanted to see what was at the edges of the darkness and after the stars, because I just couldn't imagine. And after that, I wanted to be a ballerina. I think that was mostly for the tutu and the shoes, not so much for the hard work and hours of practice. By the time I was 8 or 9, I wanted to be a writer. And when I was little and people asked me what I wanted to be, and I said astronaut or ballerina, they would smile and say, that's cute, of course. But when I got a little bit older and I said I wanted to be a writer, people did not smile anymore. They asked questions, a lot of questions. They asked specifically the kind of questions that send very powerful messages. They ask questions that send messages like, that is a ridiculous thing to want to be. That is an impossible thing to want to be. Why do you think you can be a writer? Being a writer is like wanting to be a rock star or president of the United States. It just, for most people, doesn't happen. They told me, all in all, that it was a ridiculous and silly and irresponsible thing. I also had a friend who wanted to be, he wanted to be the man who cut the rubber bands off of the lobster claws at Legal Seafoods. And that is not impossible to do as a career or very difficult, but I think it is wonderful and silly. But I wanted to do the wonderful and silly thing of writing books, and when I began writing this book, when I began writing Vaclav Lena, I was not a capital W writer. I was a tutor, and I was struggling to pay my rent, dragging my laundry up and down 5 flights of stairs, down to the laundromat, back from the laundromat, down to the laundromat, dragging my groceries up and down 5 flights of stairs. And people I knew from high school, people my own age, were starting to get real jobs that paid like actual money, and they were starting to buy houses, and they had really nice shoes. And I was making up stories and dragging my laundry up and down 5 flights of stairs in New York City. I wanted, during that time, to spend time with someone who wanted something as impossible and difficult and silly and wonderful as I did. And I wanted to spend time with someone who had a confidence that I lacked. And Vaclav, the main character of this book, just showed up announcing out of nowhere his magic act and his aspiration to be one day the world's greatest magician. I wanted to believe him, just like I wanted to believe that I could be a writer. I was Lena, my other main character, quietly, desperately hoping to hitch my wagon to his confidence. When Vaclav and Lena first started speaking, they sounded like the kids I was tutoring at the time. And I was tutoring in a neighborhood in Brooklyn called Brighton Beach that is a complete and very insular Russian immigrant neighborhood. So Vaclav and Lena sounded like those kids. They had heavy Russian accents and coming out of their tiny little adorable mouths. And I started writing about them, and I saw them everywhere. I saw them on the subways. I saw them in the grocery store and in the dollar stores and streaming out of the elementary schools. I dragged my laundry and my groceries up and down those stairs and up and down. 5 flights of stairs is killer, by the way. 5 flights of stairs, up and down, up and down. And I kept writing, and Vaclav and Lena kept practicing their magic act. And once I had met them, I couldn't let go of them. I knew I had to tell the rest of their story. And my story is not their story, but in so many ways, their story became part of my life. Their hope and their drive inspired me, and I felt that I had to do right by them. I couldn't give up on writing their story. I had to keep showing up at the page every single day, showing up at the computer every single day to write this story, no matter how impossible or how difficult it felt. Vaclav and Lena's love grew all by its own, and I began to identify with Vaclav's mother, just wanting to protect them from the world while giving them freedom to pursue their impossible, crazy dreams. I never thought for a moment that anything would come of my humble urge to tell a good story. And then Vaclav and Lena stood up tall and announced their magic act, and they taught me that anything is possible, especially the silly and the difficult and the impossible and the wonderful. And I'm grateful for everything they taught me, and I really, truly hope that you enjoy their story. I'm going to read from this ridiculous, impossible thing, a section of the book where Vaclav and Lena meet for the very first time. And I think that's all you need to know. They live in Brooklyn, and they are both recent immigrants from Russia. And I think that's it. So we'll begin. How it happened the first time that Vaclav met Lena. Lena's aunt, Ekaterina, was always complaining about having to watch Lena and about how she was always missing the good shifts, the shifts that made the most tips, because she had to pick up Lena or put Lena to bed or feed Lena something for dinner. One of the people who the aunt complained to was her boyfriend, who had a job picking up boxes and standing outside smoking in a T-shirt. And he did this job for the medical supply company on Kings Highway, where Vaclav's mother was the receptionist. The aunt's boyfriend knew Vaclav's mom, and he knew that she had a kid who looked to be about 5, same age as Lena. The boyfriend was tired of the aunt complaining, And he was tired of the aunt not making any money, and also of Lena always hanging around the apartment and getting in the way with her quietness, especially since school had let out for the summer and she was home all the time. So he talked to Raja, and they set up a play date. Vaclav's mother, Raja, was happy to have someone for her son to play with who was also in his school, because he was the new kid there, and since he had just come from Russia, he didn't have so many friends. In fact, he hadn't had a friend come over to play since they moved from Russia, and she was so excited that she rushed home with her news to tell Vaclav. Vaclav, turn off TV, I have something I can tell you. She was not yet used to speaking to her son only in English. The decision to switch, to speak strictly English at home, was easy, but speaking to her son in a language that was not her own, this was very hard. Not always having words for the things she wanted to say, this was especially hard when she was trying to have a conversation about something for which she might not have the words, even in Russian, or even if she also spoke Arabic and the click language they speak in Africa in the National Geographic Channel. Even if she knew all the languages in the whole world perfectly, she might not be able to explain to her son the things she was feeling. What she was feeling was something close to, but not exactly. I'm so terribly sorry that you are lonely and that you do not have any friends, and other kids think that you are strange, and it hurts me like someone tearing off my skin and pouring acid onto it. But we did something that for you would be the best thing in the end, and even if you never ever know it, we will know it. And when you look at us and blame us for choosing you a hard thing, we will know it. And when you look at us and blame us for being your parents, we will know it then too. Vaclav said, "It's a video, I can pause." And he rolled his eyes and he pointed his remote up at the screen of the big TV and pausing David Copperfield in mid-air just as he was being lowered from the ceiling of a huge auditorium. Raja, his mother, eased herself onto the big couch. Then she patted the seat next to her, and Vaclav stood up from the floor where he had been watching the TV. Vaclav had been sitting about 2 feet away from the screen so that he could see up close and be able to guess the secrets behind David Copperfield's tricks. "I met a woman today who has girls same age as you." Raja paused and looked at Vaclav, who raised one eyebrow. Skeptical. Okay, thought Raja, at least he is not angry. He is interested. "This girl, she is coming from Russia when she is a baby. She is having not her mother or her father around for her, and she is very shy." Vaclav didn't stop her, so she continued. "She doesn't have many friends, and her English is not so good. So I'm hoping that you will have play dates, maybe help her with English, maybe make friend." Vaclav rolled his eyes in disgust, disinterest, and annoyance all at the same time, and then asked, "What is her name?" "They call her Lena," said Raja. "Okay," said Vaclav. He knew who this girl was, the shy girl from ESL, but she had never spoken to him or to anyone else that he knew of. "She is coming Saturday for play date," said Raja. "Maybe we go to Coney Island." How it was for Lena. Lena woke up on a Saturday morning and went into the kitchen. Ekaterina, her aunt, was sitting at the kitchen table in her robe, drinking coffee and smoking a cigarette and looking at the newspaper. Even though it was early in the morning, the aunt had actually just come home from work and had not even gone to sleep yet. The aunt looked at Lena but didn't say anything. And Lena didn't say anything either, but reminded herself to be very, very quiet. The aunt didn't feel good in the mornings. Mornings gave her a headache, and she hated for Lena to make any sound at all. Lena looked for things to eat for breakfast, but there was not very much there. Not any cereal or any pancake mix or anything like that. And in the refrigerator, there was no milk or orange juice or eggs or string cheese. The only thing in the fridge was Slim Fast, and the only thing in the freezer was vodka. and the only things in the pantry were cans of things that are not really good for eating, especially if you aren't very good at using a can opener yet. Lena closed the pantry lightly so that it didn't make any sound at all. She was planning to give up and go back to her room and maybe lie in the bed and try to sleep a little bit more to pass the time. She was waiting for the aunt to go to bed so that she could take a $1 bill from her purse and go buy a snack from the bodega on the corner, or so that she could drink one of the Slim Fast cans from the fridge if there were enough so that the aunt wouldn't notice one missing and would not yell at her. "Get dressed. You are going to your friend's house," said Lena's aunt. Lena was confused because she didn't have any friends. Lena also felt that she had no choice because the aunt told her she was going in a no-questions way, which was the way she said almost everything. So Lena went to her room and put on clothes and shoes and made sure she was dressed and ready to go to her friend's house. Saturday morning, Vaclav woke up very early, and his mother was already awake, and Vaclav could smell furniture polish and lemons and bleach, and the house smelled like it did on mornings when there was company coming later, or the first time every year that is nice enough outside to open all the windows and everything feels electric. They made a plan together. Raja would take Vaclav and Lena to Coney Island on the subway, and they would ride the rides and then come home and eat some sandwiches for lunch. Vaclav and his mother were very happy about this plan, both of them knowing that Vaclav would have a new friend, and both of them knowing that they were doing something nice for this girl, Lena. They could not know that many bad things would come from this day along with the good things. They did not know that the good things would happen and interact with the bad things like chemicals and make them worse, and the other way around as well. They did not know that Vaclav and Lena would wander past the famous Coney Island sideshow and see magic tricks and Heather Holiday and her golden fringed bikini for the first time. They could not know that this would be the beginning of everything. Ekaterina walked Lena right up to the front door of Vaclav's house, and Lena felt very bad and very confused because she didn't want the aunt to leave her there alone, but she also didn't want anyone to see the aunt with her makeup on for work. Unfortunately, there was nothing Lena could do. The aunt held her wrist very tightly and a little too high up in the air so that Lena had to twist her body to keep her shoulder from hurting, and they stood and they rang the bell. As soon as the bell chimed, Lena could hear movement behind the door. On the other side of the door, Vaclav and his mother were both sitting on the big couch with everything in the apartment clean and the TV off, not talking about how excited they were. When the doorbell rang, Vaclav and his mother both stood up, and Vaclav ran off to his room, pretending to suddenly need something, overcome with excitement and nervousness and not wanting to seem as if he was just sitting and waiting for Lena to come, which he was. Raja opened the door and stared at Ekaterina, who, as the door was opening, was aggressively pressing the doorbell a second time. Ekaterina had hair that started out dark brown at the scalp and became orange for a moment, and then a glowing white blonde, stretched back tightly into a ponytail that started at the top of her head. She wore one of those fuzzy pink matching jumpsuits that all the young mothers were wearing, which made Raja feel as though there was a club that she did not belong to. And on Ekaterina's feet were big, high stiletto heels made out of clear plastic. Everything on her face was painted on as if she started with nothing there. Big black eyebrows that did not match any of the hair that grew on her head. And thick, dark lines around her eyes, and thick pink lines around her lips, and even a thick line where her face ended at her jaw and did not blend at all into her neck. Raja looked at Ekaterina and then looked at Lena, who was gripping Ekaterina's hand and looking terrified, and her heart broke just a little bit at first because she had no daughter, and then a moment later because of what she had heard about the story of Lena's life and the rumors she had heard about Ekaterina's job, and she wanted to scoop up the little girl. Honk. and she wanted to scoop up the little girl and feed her and hold her and make her safe. "Hello," said the ant. "Hello, nice to meet you," said Raja. The ant glared at her. "I have to go now. I pick her up in the evening," said the ant. "Yes, of course," said Raja, embarrassed to realize that she had been imagining that Ekaterina would sit down, that she would serve her the tea that was already steeping in the kitchen, that Lena would run off to play with Vaclav, and that she and Ekaterina would discuss Lena and Vaclav and parenthood and the neighborhood and the challenges of finding good after-school childcare and the challenges of being in a new country and become unlikely friends. Raja was surprised and embarrassed that she felt so very lonely. This has happened a few times before, loneliness that snuck up on her at the grocery store or on the bus and caught her off guard. "Goodbye," said Lena's Aunt Ekaterina, turning to walk away on the crumbling, buckling sidewalk in her plastic high-heeled shoes without saying a word to Lena, like, "Goodbye," or "Have a good time," or "I love you," or "Be good," or "I don't care if I ever see you again, I hate you," or "Have a good time on the cyclone and have fun seeing the ocean for the very first time." The aunt just turned and left Lena there. Raja noticed that Lena still had little bits of sleep crust in her eyes, and her heart broke a little bit more. She stood in the open doorway, watching, stunned, as the aunt stomped away, lighting a cigarette as she walked. "Goodbye," said Raja, although Ekaterina was already too far away to hear. Vaclav makes a grand entrance. "Lena, come inside. It's very nice to have you. Take off your shoes here, please," Raja said, and pointed at the line of her family's shoes next to the door, her loafers, her husband's ugly work shoes, and Vaclav's special new shoes with the lights on the heels and the Velcro everywhere, because in America, no one, not even small children, has time to tie his own shoes, and everything must have flashing lights. Lena walked over to the line of shoes and stood so that her feet were in line with all the empty shoes. Lena was wearing white canvas sneakers, and without reaching down with her arms at all, or changing the positioning of her torso one single bit, she used the toe of her left foot to slip the shoe off her right foot, and then she used the toe of her right foot to slip the shoe off her left foot. In this way, she took off her shoes without moving very much, and without taking her eyes off of Raja. Vaclav was spying from the hallway, and he saw what Lena had done, that she had taken off her shoes with the minimum of effort, stepping to the exact place where she wanted the shoes to be so that she did not have to move them once they were off her feet. He smiled a little bit on the inside and came forward to introduce himself. "Hello, I am Vaclav. It is nice to meet you. Welcome to my house. Can I get you something to drink?" he said, trying very hard not to sound rehearsed. Lena just looked down, embarrassed. "Okay," said Vaclav. Vaclav started to feel embarrassed as he went over in his head why Lena maybe didn't answer him, why she looked down at the floor, embarrassed. He had said, "Nice to meet you," but of course it was not the first time he had ever met Lena because they had been in school together and they were in the same ESL class in kindergarten. Vaclav's face grew hot. He became worried, but he saw that Lena's face looked hot and worried too. The three of them, the mother, the young magician, and the tiny girl, stood silently, looking at the floor between them. "Does anyone need the bathroom before we leave?" said Raja. "No," said Vaclav. "I already went." He looked at Lena, but she said nothing. "Okay, I pee and then we go," said Raja, and she turned and walked to the bathroom, leaving Vaclav and Lena to stare at the floor together. As they walked to the subway station together, Vaclav and his mother made strange efforts at having conversations that would be of interest to Lena and that were in clear and simple English so that she could listen and feel included, but also in no way required Lena to respond or to answer questions. They talked about how they would be starting first grade at the end of the summer, about shows Vaclav liked on TV, and about how hot it was outside, but Lena did not join in. On the train, Vaclav showed Lena the best place to sit, in the back, facing backward by a window, and Raja sat across from them with her purse in her lap, watching as Lena watched everything, and Vaclav watched Lena. On the train, Lena saw the following things. A white lady with a big leather purse and big leather boots and big frizzy hair talking to a black man who talked to himself. A glass bottle half full of juice that rolled back and forth around the train, bumping into everyone's feet. A man in a business suit who picked up a newspaper from the ground and read it and tucked it under his arm to take it with him when he got off. A man with one arm. A lady who wore gloves like a doctor. A skinny lady eating chicken out of a paper tray. 3 girls putting makeup on one another's faces. 2 old ladies holding hands. A teenage boy with a tiny mustache and huge headphones. A lady with a plastic bag full of plastic bags. 3 men with big black hats and curls on the sides of their faces. 3 ladies with the same exact haircut pushing babies in strollers. A man sleeping on his own knees. A woman feeding a baby from underneath her shirt. A woman crying under her sunglasses. And 2 girls wearing white shirts and red skirts laughing and whispering. Vaclav saw Lena looking at everything. Vaclav looked out the window when he rode on the train and not around the car. It took a very special thing, like a homeless person with no shoes on dressed up as an alien, or someone singing very, very loudly to make him look around the train. When Lena had seen everything that was on the train, she looked out the window. Out of the window of the train, Lena saw houses with tiny backyards filled with toys, clotheslines and more clotheslines and more clotheslines, graffiti in bright colors, garbage that looked familiar and unfamiliar, the tops of buildings, billboards that somebody forgot about, billboards with somebody's name written on them in black spray paint, the sky, pigeons in trees, the stop for Neck Road, the stop for Ocean Parkway, and then finally, the sign for Coney Island, Stillwell Avenue, which is when it was finally time to get off the train. Vaclav took Lena's hand again when it was time to get off the train, and he pointed to the gap between the train and the platform to show Lena to be careful. They both walked along the platform to the stairs with Raja following closely behind. Vaclav knew the way to exit the subway station because he had been to Coney Island before, but he glanced back just to make sure that his mother was still there. A hot wind was blowing as they came down the stairs from the elevated train platform, and at the edges of the wind, Lena could smell a smell like the back of the supermarket where they keep the fish. As they crossed Surf Avenue, Lena and Vaclav could see the cyclone snaking above the hot dog stands, and the tarot card lady, and the kids, and the ladies in the too tight denim shorts. In the space between the streets, past the cyclone and the hot dogs and the people, Lena could see the beach, and beyond that, the ocean. To Lena, who had grown up in a tiny brownish-gray apartment with her tiny brownish-gray babushka and walked along cement streets to a big brick school, it looked as if the world had suddenly been colored in. Together, they snaked their way quickly through the games and the booths selling hats and T-shirts and all the wild things and wild people and fried food. It seemed like everyone was in their way, and to Vaclav it felt as if they were already wasting time. Lena, holding tightly to his hand, did not look around at all the people the way she did on the subway. She looked through everything, straight ahead of her, and not once did she take her eyes off the big blue ocean. They squeezed and excused me their way through everything and came out the other end on the hot wooden boardwalk where the boards squished a little bit with each step like piano keys. Raja made her way to a bench and sat down. 1 minute, she said. We take rest. It was too hot out. Raja was perspiring everywhere, and her sciatica was roaring up her leg. Come on, Mom, we go to the rides, Vaclav said. 1 minute, Raja said. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi, 4 Mississippi, Vaclav began, counting off seconds to a minute. Listen, Mr. Anson Pants. I didn't mean 1 minute exactly. I meant let's rest for a little while. Vaclav looked like he was going to burst. Come on, he said. Time it is running. We are missing the rides. He could barely contain himself. She looked up at the gigantic wonder wheel looming over them. She could see from where she sat the baskets and the tops of the heads of the people inside. It didn't look very fast at all. Come on, she said. Come on, come on, come on. Okay, listen, Vaclav's mother said. You go straight to Wonder Wheel, and you ride one time, and you come straight back here. And she handed Vaclav $10 in singles. She and Vaclav had already talked at length about all the rules that would prevent all the horrible things she saw each week on American television from happening to her son. He knew not to talk to strangers, how to ask a policeman for help, how to yell and shout if anyone bothered him, and to say exactly where he was if he got lost. He would be fine for 5 minutes. As she watched him walk away into the big American crowd under the big American roller coaster, she felt the world spinning wildly away from her, and she sat and she cried because she was happy and sad that he did not look back, because of how much she loved his little body and his awkward cowlicky head and his tiny little rib cage and the way that he knew already to take a girl's hand if she was afraid. Vaclav and Lena walked quickly across the boardwalk away from the ocean, Vaclav dragging Lena behind him by the hand because Lena kept looking behind her at the ocean, always wanting to see if it was moving because it seemed to come toward her, away and back, and it might creep up or rush at her suddenly and crush everything. First, we ride the Wonder Wheel. There's no line, Vaclav said, and he pulled Lena towards the entrance, rushing to beat the imaginary crowds. They waited at the gate for the man to come and take their money. The gate was painted blue where it was chipping, but you could see that it had also been painted green and orange and black, and all the way at the bottom it was red and rusty. The man said, "Hey, girlie, you're not tall enough to ride this ride," and he pointed at a clown made out of plywood, extending a plywood hand, palm down. On the belly of the clown were the words, "You must be this tall to ride this ride." This man had talked to Lena loudly, and she did not know what he had said, and she looked to Vaclav feeling terrified. Vaclav looked at the clown, and he looked at Lena, and he knew there was no chance that he could maybe make the man think that Lena was tall enough, not even by making her stand on her tippy toes. "It's okay, it's not fun anyway," Vaclav said. Lena didn't understand what had happened. She didn't understand the clown or the words written on the clown. She only understood that she had not been allowed to ride the ride and that Vaclav had forgiven her. Vaclav and Lena walked back to Raja's bench. "We cannot ride that ride. It is not for us," Vaclav said. "We will go on a different ride." He turned behind him and pointed at the cyclone. "That one." "Okay, you ride this ride and then come right back," Raja said. But at the entrance to the cyclone, another clown told them that this time they were both not tall enough. Vaclav thought that his mother would not mind if they tried just one more ride. As Vaclav and Lena walked through all the stalls, they saw more and more rides, all of them guarded by the "you must be this tall" clown. When they thought that they might have spotted a ride that did not have a clown, suddenly someone would move aside to reveal that the clown had in fact been lurking there the entire time. Vaclav did not give up, however, and he pulled Lena through the people and the rides and out the other end so that they were almost back on Surf Avenue and Lena could not see the ocean at all. If they had only walked the other way, they would have found all the kiddie rides, but they didn't. Vaclav and Lena stood on the corner, the rides behind them, the subway and all of Brooklyn and all of Manhattan and all of the United States of America ahead of them. They did not know it yet, but they were standing right in front of the world-famous Coney Island Sideshow Theater. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. So I think I have a moment. We have a few moments for questions, if anyone has any questions related to the book or anything at all. Yes? Yes. Yes. So the question is, how much of the mother in the book is based on mothers I saw while I was tutoring, or my own mother, who is sitting right here, front row. Bravo to Mommy. Mothers of writers deserve quite more than a round of applause. Not an easy thing. The mother in this book is a tough woman who makes tough decisions, and everything she does is driven by love for her children. So I have to say that the soul of that is certainly inspired by my own mother, who maybe will buy me dinner tonight. And I was also lucky enough to interact with and to see mothers, first-generation immigrant mothers in Brooklyn, making very difficult choices in their own lives, deciding to leave their entire families behind, really sometimes never to be seen again, and coming to a country where they don't speak the language, and advocating for your children when you don't speak the language is really incredibly hard and requires a ton of courage. And I was inspired by those mothers as well. But thank you. Excellent question. Yeah. Anything else? Anybody? Oh, yes.
I just stepped in from somewhere else, so was captivated by your writing.
Oh, great. Thank you.
I just didn't get whether this was a story written for young adults or is it a story written for all of us?
It is a story for everyone. It is a story for everyone. And the book is actually, there are children in the novel. Things get quite dark and complicated and heavy mid-book. I didn't read that to you guys because it would kind of spoil the ending. But it does get very adult. Yeah, but also an excellent question. Although I feel, because I was an avid reader as a teenager and as a young teenager, and I think we read down to children. I read really heavy stuff when I was younger and never felt like it was over my head. It was actually what I was craving. So there's nothing explicit in here that would keep it from an excellent reader who just happens to be 16. Sure. Yes. Thank you so very much. I really appreciate that. This is actually one of my first readings. The book came out this past Tuesday. It's one of my first readings. Actually, the book premiered in Poland. So I had opportunity to do several readings in Poland, but I was dubbed over by a Polish man's voice. So I can't imagine what the reading sounded like to my audience. It was really interesting. But I really appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you. Yes. I am, on either side of my family, a third or fourth generation American. And there is an immigration story in this book it's similar to the immigration story of my Russian family who came to the United States, but the times and the story and the situation are so vastly different, from when my great-grandparents were first opening their grocery store in Brooklyn to the immigration now. Really? Really? It's from Russia and Poland as well? Yeah, it's the same. Yeah. And I think it's we're a country of immigrants. It's a true American story, and it's fascinating, and there's getting inside of it for me was so much fun. Yeah, thank you. Okay, so I'll be signing. Thank you so much for listening and excellent questions. I really appreciate it. Thank you, and enjoy the day.